The Grand Hall of the Confederation Tower hummed with the sounds of 28 different species, discussing matters of galactic importance. Admiral Hannah Park sat straight-backed at the circular table, her blue uniform crisp despite the 12-hour journey from Earth. She kept her face neutral as Ambassador Tolk, a tall being with iridescent scales, finished his speech with a barbed comment directed at humans. And perhaps our newest members might learn that the galaxy rewards those who act decisively, not those who hide behind endless talks and papers. Several representatives chuckled. It was the third thinly veiled insult today. Hannah took a slow breath. 5 years into humanity's membership in the Galactic Confederation, and still they were the cautious ones, the hesitators, or when some were feeling particularly cruel, the cowards of soul, all because Earth's first contact protocol emphasized diplomacy before military action. "Thank you, Ambassador," she said, her voice calm. "Earth appreciates your perspective, as always." The Confederation didn't understand Earth's history, how close humanity had come to destroying itself in the nuclear age, how they'd learned the hard way that shooting first meant everyone lost. The long road to their unified world government had taught lessons written in blood. After the session, Hannah retreated to the human embassy section. Her aide, Lieutenant Jinwoo Kim, waited with data tablets. "Another productive day?" he asked, noticing her tight expression. "If by productive you mean I didn't flip the table when Ambassador Grack suggested we should evolve some backbone, then, yes, incredibly productive." Jinwoo smiled. "Well, I have something that might interest you." Deep Space Monitoring Station Delta 9 picked up unusual energy patterns at the Sagan boundary. Hannah's fatigue vanished as she took the tablet. The readings showed strange pulses of energy, unlike anything in Confederation records. "Have you shared this with the Science Council?" "This morning," Director Vaz said, and I quote, "cosmic background fluctuations, hardly worth noting." Hannah studied the patterns. They were too regular, too structured to be random. "This isn't natural. Run it through our Earth algorithms." 3 days later, Hannah stood before the High Council with fresh data. The massive chamber, with its transparent dome showing the stars beyond, usually impressed her. Today, she barely noticed the spectacular view. "Distinguished representatives," she began. "Earth's analysis suggests these energy signatures match no known natural phenomenon. The pattern indicates artificial origin, possibly a form of communication or propulsion." Ambassador Pellner, with 4 eyes and brilliant orange fur, waved a dismissive limb. "The Science Council has already classified these as standard cosmic anomalies." "With respect," Hannah countered, "Earth's experience with deep space scanning suggests otherwise. We recommend sending a reconnaissance vessel to investigate." The chamber filled with the clicks, whistles, and rumbles of multiple species communicating their amusement. "Typical human paranoia," muttered a representative loud enough for everyone to hear. Council Leader Raz, a being composed of what looked like translucent blue gel, formed speaking appendages. "Admiral Park, we appreciate Earth's thoroughness. However, deploying resources based on such flimsy evidence would be wasteful. The Confederation has monitored this sector for centuries without concern," Hannah persisted. "Earth was late to interstellar travel, but we've faced extinction-level threats within our own system. Caution saved us numerous times. And that caution has become your species' defining characteristic," said Ambassador Tolk, with a smile that displayed too many teeth. "The universe rewards the bold, Admiral. Perhaps that's why humans achieved spaceflight so late compared to others." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Hannah maintained her composure, despite the heat rising in her cheeks. That evening, in her quarters overlooking the artificial lake of the Confederation capital planet, Hannah discussed strategy with her team. Holographic star charts illuminated the room as they examined the mysterious readings. "They won't listen," said Commander Suho Lee, head of security, "not until something explodes. Then we prepare without them," Hannah decided. "I'm dispatching the scout ship Horizon to investigate." Quietly. 2 weeks later, Captain Yunha Kang of the Horizon sent encrypted findings that made Hannah's blood run cold. The energy signatures weren't just communications. They were the wake patterns of massive ships, unlike anything in Confederation records. The vessels employed some form of cloaking technology, that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible to standard sensors. When Hana brought this evidence to an emergency council session, she faced more ridicule. "Phantom ships," scoffed Ambassador Grax. "Next you'll claim space dragons are circling your homeworld." Only the Talon representative, a species known for their advanced sensor technology, showed concern. "These readings do show anomalies worthy of investigation." "The humans have infected you with their fear," said Tolk. "This is why we hesitated to admit such a primitive species to our ranks." Hana stood firm. "Earth has survived by learning from our mistakes. When we ignore warnings, people die. I formally request Confederation support for a defense initiative along the Sagan boundary." The motion was defeated 26-2, with only Earth and the Talons in favor. As the Council disbanded, Ambassador Raz approached Hana. "Your species sees threats where none exist, Admiral. It must be exhausting to live in such fear." Hana looked the Ambassador directly in what passed for eyes. "It's not fear that drives us, Ambassador. It's memory. Earth has seen civilizations fall because they ignored warnings." Back on her flagship, the Defiant, Hana ordered a communications blackout and gathered her top officers. Above the central table, a hologram displayed the mysterious vessels their sensors had detected. "The Confederation won't act," she told them. "So we will. Deploy our Sentinel network along the boundary. Full stealth protocols." She looked at each officer. "Earth stands watch, even if we stand alone." None of them knew that within weeks, they would be the only line of defense against an enemy the galaxy wasn't prepared to face. The transmission cut through every communication channel across the Confederation network, overriding security protocols, as if they were children's puzzles. One moment, Admiral Hana Park had been reviewing defense projections in her office aboard the Defiant. The next, her screens filled with images that made her stomach turn. New Harmony Colony, population 3 million, was gone, not damaged or invaded, simply gone. Where a thriving settlement had stood on the verdant moon of Epsilon Indi, there was now a perfectly circular crater, the edges still glowing with unnatural blue fire. The recording showed the moment of destruction, a beam of dark energy that seemed to drink in light around it, slamming into the planet's surface. "Play it again," Hana ordered, her voice steady despite the horror churning inside her. The footage repeated. This time she noticed the source, a massive ship, if it could be called that. The vessel resembled a twisted cathedral of black metal, covered in spines and structures that hurt the eye to follow. It dwarfed the largest Confederation dreadnought by at least 5 times. Before she could examine further, the image dissolved into static, then reformed to show something new. A figure stood before the camera, though "stood" might be the wrong word. It hovered, its body a shifting mass of dark matter contained within ornate armor that seemed fused to whatever flesh might exist beneath. When it spoke, its voice resonated not through the speakers, but directly in the mind, a psychic intrusion that left Hana's officers clutching their heads. "Attention, insignificant fragments of creation. We are the Void Dominion. Your existence has been tolerated until now. That tolerance has ended." Within hours, the emergency council chamber was chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, some wailing in distress, others demanding immediate military action. The massive hologram in the center showed the Void Dominion's message playing on repeat. Their declaration that the Confederation must surrender all worlds on the galactic rim as tribute or face extinction. Hana stood at her designated platform, watching the panic with growing disgust. These were the same representatives who had mocked Earth's caution mere weeks ago. Now they were falling apart at the first sign of real danger. "We must withdraw to our core systems," shouted Ambassador Tolk, his scales now a pale green of fear. "Fortify our homeworlds and abandon the rim colonies?" Hana's voice cut through the noise. "That's over 2 billion civilians across 17 settlements." Council Leader Raz's gelatinous form rippled with stress patterns. "Admiral Park, surely you understand the tactical reality. We cannot defend planets so far from our power centers." "We can if we coordinate." Hana stepped forward, activating the strategic display. Human history is filled with examples of smaller forces, defending successfully against overwhelming odds through unified effort. For the next hour, she outlined a defense plan, a coordinated blockade at key hyperspace junctions supported by rapid response fleets. It would require sharing technology, combining forces that had never trained together, but it could work. When she finished, a moment of silence filled the chamber. Then Ambassador Grax laughed, a high, nervous sound. Typical human thinking, always believing you can fight superior forces and win. He turned to the council. I propose we open diplomatic channels. Perhaps these void entities will accept reasonable terms. The vote was crushing. 24 in Einweismar, favor of negotiation, 3 abstentions, and only Earth still advocating for unified defense. As the council dispersed, Ambassador Pelner approached Hannah, her orange fur now dull with stress. Your people don't understand, she said quietly. Some threats cannot be fought. The void ships, and they're like nothing we've seen. All the more reason to stand together, Hannah replied. Pelner's 4 eyes blinked in sad sequence. Your species is young. You still believe in heroes and last stands. The rest of us outgrew such notions millennia ago. Back aboard the Defiant, Hannah initiated a secure quantum link to Earth. President June spoke from his underground office, his face grave as she briefed him. The Confederation is abandoning the Rim colonies? He asked, disbelief evident in his voice. Worse, Hannah replied, they're withdrawing their fleets to core worlds. When negotiations fail, and they will fail, the outer systems will be defenseless. The President was silent for a long moment. Your assessment of these void entities? They're unlike anything in Confederation records. Their technology appears to manipulate dark energy itself, but they're not invincible. The energy readings suggest massive power requirements. There could be vulnerabilities during their weapons recharge cycle. And you believe negotiation will fail? Hannah's expression hardened. Mr. President, they introduced themselves by vaporizing 3 million civilians. This isn't a negotiation, it's a feeding. Another long pause. Then, implement Silent Shield. Hannah's heart raced. Silent Shield was the contingency they'd developed after the Confederation had dismissed their warnings. A complete redeployment of Earth's fleet under radio silence, positioned to protect key civilian transport lanes. That will violate Confederation protocol, she warned. They've explicitly ordered all member fleets to withdraw. The last time Earth listened to appeasement advocates, half of Europe burned, the President said, his voice steel. We will publicly support the diplomatic mission. Meanwhile, deploy the fleet. Any civilian ship fleeing the Rim colonies is to be protected, regardless of species. Over the next week, as the Confederation prepared its diplomatic envoys, Earth's ships quietly moved into position. The sleek, gunmetal-gray vessels of the Human Defense Force took up stations in asteroid fields and gas giant shadows, sensors. Passive drives cold. Captain Do-Hyun Ryu of the destroyer Indomitable watched through his viewport as the massive colony ship Sanctuary limped past, damaged but intact, filled with refugees from New Eden colony. Confederation patrol would have let them die, muttered his XO, Commander Soyeon Yoon, as they monitored the ship's progress. The Confederation doesn't understand what's coming, Do-Hyun replied, studying the tactical display where 5 void ships were advancing on the Arcturus system. But we do. Humanity remembers what it means to fight monsters. On the 3rd day of negotiations, the Void Dominion revealed their true nature, as the Confederation envoy delivered carefully prepared concessions. The alien commander simply reached out and touched the diplomat's head. The broadcast showed the diplomat's body crumbling to ash, the void entity absorbing some essence from the dying alien. Your offerings are insufficient, the void entity stated to the horrified council. We do not seek territory. We seek consumption. Your species are food for our ascension. Admiral Park watched the broadcast from the bridge of the Defiant, her jaw tight. Beside her, Lieutenant Jinwoo looked ill. They're not invaders, he whispered. They're harvesters. Send the signal, Hannah ordered. All ships, protocol Thermopylae. Across the stars, human vessels powered up their drives. While the Confederation races fled toward their homeworlds, Earth's fleet formed a protective line across the escape routes from the doomed rim worlds. They would stand against the darkness, whether the galaxy appreciated it or not. Admiral Hana. Park stood motionless before the vast observation window of the Confederation Tower, watching evacuation ships stream from the capital planet like glowing embers from a dying fire. Behind her, the emergency council session had devolved into chaos. Again. 3 more worlds had fallen in the past week: Nebulon Prime, Vega Colony, and Tau Ceti Station, their populations harvested by the advancing Void Dominion fleet. 63 billion sentients, she whispered to herself, the number crushing. Her chest like a physical weight. That was the combined death toll now. 63 billion thinking, feeling beings simply gone. In the reflection of the window, she could see Ambassador Tolk gesturing wildly, his scales now a sickly yellow. We must open secondary channels, perhaps a greater offering of resources. Resources? Ambassador Pelnara of the Avian Creel screeched, her feathers bristling. They consumed an entire moon of pure helium-3 without slowing. They don't want our resources. Then more worlds, Tolk pressed desperately. Outer worlds, unpopulated systems. Hana turned slowly, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. They don't want empty worlds, Ambassador. They want us, our essence, our life force. Whatever they consume from living beings feeds them in ways our science doesn't understand. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed the Void Dominion's advance, a spreading darkness across the star map, systems blinking out one by one. Their vessels now numbered in the hundreds, each massive ship accompanied by swarms of smaller craft that resembled twisted metallic insects. Council leader Raz's gelatinous form trembled as he tried to maintain order. The diplomatic corps reports, "The Dominion has agreed to another meeting." "They're stalling," Hana interrupted. "Every meeting gives them time to digest their latest conquest and identify the next target." The doors to the council chamber burst open as Lieutenant Jinwoo rushed in, ignoring protocol. His face was ashen as he handed Hana a data tablet. She read it, her expression hardening into something like granite. "The Void Dominion has sent a direct message to Earth," she announced, her voice oddly calm. "They demand our immediate surrender. Our planet is next." The chamber fell silent. "Will you comply?" asked Ambassador Grax, not meeting her eyes. Hana looked around the chamber slowly, taking in each representative. Many wouldn't meet her gaze. Others looked relieved. Better Earth than their homeworld. "No," she said simply. "We will not." "Admiral Park," Council Leader Raz began, "please consider." "While you've been debating, Earth has been preparing," Hana cut in. "Our colony worlds have been evacuated. Our fleet has been mobilized. We will make our stand at the Proxima threshold." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Proxima threshold was a natural choke point, a narrow corridor of stable space where the Dominion would have to pass to reach Earth's solar system. "You cannot hope to stop them," Tolk said, almost sympathetically. "Their technology is beyond anything." "Maybe," Hana acknowledged, "but we won't know until we try." She looked at the Council one last time. Humanity extended its hand to the stars hoping for unity. Instead, we found ridicule for our caution. Now, when caution has given way to courage, we find ourselves standing alone. She stepped down from the platform and nodded to Jinwoo. "The Human Defense Force withdraws from Confederation Command, effective immediately." As they walked toward the exit, Ambassador Pelnara called out, "You're dooming your species for pride." Hana paused at the doorway. "No, Ambassador, we're remembering what it means to be human." 3 days later, the combined fleet of the Human Defense Force assembled at the Proxima threshold. 217 ships formed a crescent formation before the narrow spatial corridor. At the center, the massive flagship Defiant gleamed under the light of the binary stars. Each vessel had been retrofitted with experimental weapons, systems based on data gathered from previous Dominion attacks. On the bridge of the Defiant, Admiral Park reviewed the final deployment. Holographic projections showed the positions of every ship, from the heavy battle cruisers to the swift corvettes. "All personnel have been given the option to evacuate to Earth," reported Captain Minho, her tactical officer. 98%, have chosen to remain at their posts. Hana nodded, unsurprised but proud. Status of the Aegis Protocol? The solar shield is at 86% deployment, said Lieutenant Jinwoo. If we fail here, Earth will have some protection at least. For a time. The massive viewscreen suddenly flickered, showing the swirling quantum disturbance that heralded Void Dominion arrival. Dark shapes began to emerge, first one massive cathedral-like vessel, then another, then dozens more. 37 capital ships, Minho reported, her voice steady despite the impossible odds. Over 200 support craft. Hana opened a channel to all human vessels. Men and women of Earth, I won't lie to you about our chances today. The enemy we face has consumed worlds throughout the galaxy. The Confederation races have fled rather than stand against them. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But humanity has always found its greatest strength in its darkest hours. Our history is written by those who refuse to step back when facing overwhelming odds. She looked at the approaching armada, her resolve hardening. Every minute we hold this line is another minute for Earth to prepare, for other species to find safety. We may not survive this battle, but we will show the galaxy that humans do. Not abandon others to the darkness. A new signal interrupted, the Void Dominion broadcasting directly to the human fleet. The twisted figure that appeared on screen was larger than previous envoys, its armor more elaborate, suggesting some kind of leadership role. Humans, the psychic voice resonated painfully in their minds. Your defiance is unexpected. The other prey flee, you stand. Curious. We're not prey, Hana replied simply, and we're done running from bullies, no matter their size. Your resistance is mathematically futile, the entity stated. You cannot win, Hana smiled slightly. Humanity has a long history of accomplishing the mathematically futile. She cut the transmission and turned to her bridge crew. Their faces showed fear, certainly, but something stronger too, determination, purpose, unity. All ships battle formation Delta, she ordered. Prepare to engage on my mark. As the human fleet moved into position, a final message was broadcast, across all Confederation frequencies, reaching even the retreating ships of the species who had abandoned them. From the human defense force to all who can hear, sometimes courage isn't charging forward. It's refusing to step back. Remember us. The first wave of Void Dominion ships surged forward like a tide of living darkness. Their weapons, beams of energy that seemed to devour light itself, reached out toward the human fleet. Admiral Hana, Park gripped the edge of the tactical display as the battle began. Initiate scatter protocol, she ordered calmly. As if choreographed in a dance, the human vessels broke formation in perfect coordination. Where the Dominion expected to find targets, they found empty space. The deadly beams passed harmlessly through the gaps. Counteroffensive pattern Theta, Hana commanded. 3 squadrons of corvettes darted forward, their engines burning hot. They were small, nimble ships, barely visible against the backdrop of space until they launched their payloads. Specially designed quantum disruptors that attached to the hull of the nearest Dominion vessel and detonated. The effect wasn't immediately destructive, but the massive ship's movements became sluggish, its energy field fluctuating. It's working, breathed Lieutenant Jinwoo from his station. The disruptors are interfering with their dark energy manipulation, Hana nodded. All ships, target the compromised vessel. Conventional weapons, maximum yield. What followed was a concentrated barrage unlike anything the Dominion had faced before. Railgun projectiles moving at relativistic speeds punched through the weakened shields. Plasma torpedoes followed, superheating the alien metal. For the first time since they entered Confederation space, a Void Dominion capital ship showed signs of damage, but the victory was short-lived. 3 more Dominion vessels moved to protect their wounded comrade, and a swarm of their insect-like fighter craft descended on the corvette squadrons. Corvette Group 2, we're taking heavy fire, came. The desperate transmission. On the tactical display, friendly indicators began winking out one by one. By the end of the first day, humanity had destroyed 1 Dominion capital ship and damaged 3 others. The cost was 42 human vessels and nearly 8,000 lives. They're adapting to our tactics, Captain Minho reported as they regrouped. Her uniform was torn, a gash across her forehead hastily treated. Half the bridge crew had been replaced as casualties mounted. The disruptors aren't as effective anymore. Hana studied the sensor data streaming in. Then we adapt faster. Upload all combat telemetry to the tactical AI. I want new approach vectors, calculated based on their response patterns. The second day brought a new strategy. Instead of direct confrontation, human ships executed micro-jumps, tiny, precisely calculated, faster-than-light hops that let them appear, strike and vanish before the Dominion could respond. It was dangerous, precision work that pushed their technology to its limits. By the fifth day, the battle had settled into a grim pattern. The humans would innovate, the Dominion would adapt. Each side would inflict damage, but the numbers favored the invaders. Still, the Void Dominion hadn't broken through. They're growing frustrated, Hana observed, watching the increasingly erratic attack patterns. They expected to overrun us in hours, not days. Admiral called a communications officer. We're receiving transmissions from beyond the threshold. Civilian evacuation ships report safe passage to Rally Point Epsilon. The delaying action is working. A tired cheer went up around the bridge. Every hour they held meant thousands more civilians reaching safety. On the eighth day, disaster struck. A new Dominion vessel arrived, larger than the others. It unleashed a weapon they hadn't seen before, a gravity pulse that crushed 12 human ships instantly, including the heavy cruiser Indomitable. All ships fall back to secondary positions, Hana ordered. Deploy gravity anchors. The gravity anchors, massive devices developed from Earth's early experiments with artificial gravity, created localized fields that partially neutralized the enemy's gravity weapon. It wasn't perfect, but it kept the fleet fighting. By the 11th day, the human fleet was down to 93 ships. The bridge of the Defiant was operating on emergency power, its hull breached in multiple sections. Admiral Park hadn't slept for more than 2 hours at a stretch, surviving on stimulants and sheer determination. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Jinwoo, his voice hoarse from smoke inhalation, "we've identified something. A pattern in their energy emissions before they fire their main weapons. There's a 3-second vulnerability when they have to realign their dark energy matrices." Hana studied the data, her exhausted mind racing. If we could hit them at exactly that moment with enough firepower, it would have to be point-blank range, Jinwoo said quietly. No ship could survive the counterattack. Their eyes met in silent understanding. On the 14th day, the Defiant led a desperate charge against the Dominion flagship. 5 human vessels, all that could still achieve maximum acceleration, formed a spear formation. They took horrific fire, ships peeling away as they were hit, but the Defiant pushed through. "Wait for it," Hana commanded as they closed to suicidal proximity. The massive Dominion vessel loomed ahead, preparing to fire its main weapon. On the sensors, they watched the energy pattern that Jinwoo had identified begin its telltale fluctuation. Now, all power to forward batteries. The Defiant's remaining weapons fired directly into the momentarily vulnerable heart of the Dominion ship. For a second, nothing happened. Then a chain reaction began, dark energy consuming itself in a catastrophic collapse. The explosion tore the Defiant nearly in half. Hana was thrown across the bridge, consciousness fading as emergency systems failed around her. Her last sight was the Dominion flagship breaking apart, its unnatural energies turning inward. On the 17th day, the battle ended, not with victory but with mutual devastation. Of the human defense force, only 22 ships remained operational, most heavily damaged. But the Void Dominion had lost more than half their fleet, an unprecedented setback that forced them to retreat from the threshold. In her medical pod, aboard the rescue vessel Aurora, Admiral Park regained consciousness long enough to issue her final order. "Transmit everything, all combat data, all sensor readings, send it to the Confederation. Show them the way." As the surviving human ships limped home, they broadcast their findings on all frequencies. The Dominion could be hurt. They could be stopped. The cost had been nearly the entire human fleet, but they had proven the impossible. In the void where the battle had raged, debris from both fleets now floated silently, a monument to humanity's refusal to step back from the darkness. The Confederation. War Council chamber looked nothing like it had 3 months earlier. Gone were the ornate decorations and comfortable seating. Now it resembled a military command center, with tactical displays covering the walls and species that had once bickered endlessly now working side by side with grim determination. Admiral Hannah Park entered slowly, leaning on a cane. Her left leg was still partly mechanical, following the emergency procedures that had saved her life after the Battle of Proxima Threshold. Burn scars marked the left side of her face, and her formerly black hair now showed streaks of white. But her eyes remained sharp, taking in every detail of the transformed chamber. Conversation stopped as the assembled representatives noticed her presence. Then, to her surprise, they rose to their feet, all of them, from the massive, four-armed Kreth to the tiny hovering Virial, a sign of respect that would have been unthinkable before. Admiral Park greeted Council Leader Raz, his gelatinous form now housed in a combat-ready exoskeleton. "We are honored by your presence." Hannah nodded, unsure how to respond to this new deference. "I came as soon as I was cleared for duty." "Please," said Ambassador Tolk, his scales now a deep blue of respect, "join us at the command table." The tactical display showed a very different map than the one she remembered. Where before the Void Dominion's expansion had seemed unstoppable, now there were containment zones, defensive lines, and even, most surprisingly, territories marked as reclaimed. "The data your fleet transmitted," explained Ambassador Pelnara, her feathers now adorned with military insignia, "it changed everything. The vulnerability in their energy matrix, the 3-second window, it gave us a fighting chance." "The Confederation fleet has been completely reorganized," added General Voss of the Drenthal, "a species that had once been humanity's harshest critics. Our new flagship launches tomorrow. We've named it Earth's Legacy." Hannah raised an eyebrow at that. "The Drenthal naming a ship after Earth? Now I've seen everything." Voss's facial ridges colored slightly. "We were wrong about your species, Admiral. We mistook caution for cowardice. We failed to understand that true courage sometimes means standing firm when others flee." A young human officer entered the chamber, coming to attention before Hannah. "Admiral, the integrated fleet is assembled and awaiting your inspection." "My inspection?" Hannah looked around in confusion. Raz's form rippled with what she now recognized as their version of a smile. "The Confederation Council has voted unanimously. You have been appointed Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces." Outside, through the massive viewport, Hannah could see hundreds of ships in orbit, vessels of every Confederation species, now modified with technology developed from the Proxima. Battle data. Many displayed a new emblem alongside their native insignia, a simple outline of Earth, with a sword standing vertically behind it. "I don't understand," she said finally. "Then let us show you," replied Tolk. They took her to what had once been the Confederation's Grand Ceremonial Hall. It had been transformed into a memorial space, with the names of all who had fallen at Proxima etched into crystalline walls. At the center stood a holographic display showing the battle, moment by moment, and there, playing on a continuous loop, was her final transmission from the Defiant. "Sometimes courage isn't charging forward, it's refusing to step back. Your words have become our battle cry," said Pelnara softly. "In every ship, before every engagement, stand as humans stood." The following day, Hannah stood on the bridge of Earth's Legacy, watching as the combined fleet prepared for its first major offensive. Ships of every design and origin moved in perfect coordination. The elegant spiral vessels of the Creel, the crystalline structures of the Tylon, the massive cubic warships of the Drenthal, and the sleek, practical designs of the rebuilt human. Fleet Lieutenant Jinwu, now promoted to commander, stood at her side. The prosthetic arm he'd received after Proxima gleamed in the starlight. "Fleet reports ready, Admiral," he said. Through the viewport she could see their target, a Void Dominion harvesting operation at the edge of the Orion Spur. 3 of their massive cathedral ships surrounded a once vibrant world, now half consumed. "All ships," she ordered. "Initiate jump sequence. Remember your training. Hit them during the matrix realignment, just as we practiced. As the fleet vanished into faster-than-light, a Drenthal officer approached her. "Admiral, before we engage, I wish to express something." His voice was formal, almost ceremonial. "My grandfather was among those who most strongly opposed human admission to the Confederation. He called your species primitive, overly cautious, unworthy of the stars." Hana waited, curious where this was going. "He was on Nebulan Prime when it fell. We thought him lost. But your fleet's delaying action at Proxima allowed a rescue ship to reach the southern continent." The Drenthal's eyes blinked in their complex pattern. "He lives because humans refuse to step back." Before she could respond, the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly into the heart of the Dominion formation. Unlike before, they weren't facing this horror alone or with untested tactics. Every ship knew exactly when to strike, precisely where to hit. The first Dominion vessel fell within minutes, its dark energy matrix collapsing in on itself. The second tried to flee, but was caught in a crossfire of modified weapons based on human designs. On the command deck of the third ship, the Dominion commander, a towering figure of twisted armor and swirling darkness, watched in disbelief as its supposedly invincible fleet was dismantled piece by piece. "Impossible," its psychic voice echoed. "The prey cannot fight back. The prey always flees." The last image it received before its ship was destroyed was a transmission from Earth's legacy, Admiral Park, standing tall despite her injuries, her voice calm but resolute. "We're not prey," she said simply. "We're humans, and we taught the galaxy how to stand." 6 months later, the Void Dominion had been pushed back beyond the borders of Confederation space. A year after that, their home dimension was sealed off with technology developed from their own dark energy manipulation. In the rebuilt Confederation Hall on Earth, now the new capital of the Alliance, a simple plaque was installed beside the eternal flame. It read only, "To those who stood when standing seemed impossible." The end.